Thank you for inviting me to address you today. It is always a pleasure to do so. We gather on the eve of a crucial election. It will take place in a very different world to the 2016 election. The COVID pandemic has upended our economy and pushed our society to its very limits. And in the midst of all of that, Brexit has seen Scotland dragged out of the EU against our will, putting jobs and workers' rights in the firing line. The central question in this election is who has the policies and the experience to navigate these unprecedented times. Today, I will outline why I think the SNP is best placed to lead Scotland's recovery. But first, I want to offer you a sincere thank you. I'm really proud to live in a country with a vibrant trade union movement, which I know has contributed enormously to improving the social fabric of Scotland. You have been constructive partners to the Scottish Government, supporting us in delivering our shared priorities and being honest and robust when you want us to do more. Over the past year, in almost every walk of life, your members have helped keep communities together and helped keep Scotland running in the most trying of circumstances. And of course, you did all of this while having to cope with the same disruption in your personal lives as everyone else. COVID has really shone a light on the fragilities in our society, whether that's health inequalities, insecure employment, low pay, or access to public services. In learning the lessons of how we handled the pandemic, our recovery cannot simply involve turning the clock back to 2019. We must be bold and we must be ambitious, and we must choose a recovery for the long term. If re-elected, this will be an SNP government's overriding mission, and we will not waste any time in going about it. In the first 6 months of the next Parliament, we will deliver a new 10-year national strategy for economic transformation, setting out the steps we will take to deliver a green economic recovery and support new good green jobs, businesses and industries for the future. Working with industry, trade unions and academics, we will create a new Council for Economic Transformation to shape the strategy and guide its implementation. Investment in infrastructure will underpin that economic transformation. Our National Infrastructure Mission will increase annual investment by £1.5 billion to almost £7 billion by 2025-26. This will deliver a total investment value of over £33 billion in the next 5 years, and it is estimated to support 45,000 jobs directly over that period, providing benefits across Scottish supply chains. We will create a national infrastructure company to manage and develop public assets for public good, putting fair working conditions at the heart of public infrastructure projects. Meanwhile, our Low Carbon Infrastructure Challenge Fund will invest £26 million to support the development of robust supply chains in low carbon industries, and our £34 million Scottish Industrial Energy Transformation Fund will support the decarbonisation of heavy industry in Scotland. We know that lack of affordable housing remains an issue for many, so we have published plans to deliver 100,000 more affordable homes over the next decade, backed by investment of £3.5 billion in the next Parliament and supporting 14,000 jobs a year. All of this investment will be made with our net zero ambitions in mind. Bold and ambitious change is needed in every aspect of our lives if we are to safeguard the future of our people and planet. We are determined to do this in a way that avoids the mistakes of the past, which saw coal and steel workers, their families and communities abandoned during the deindustrialisation of the 80s and 90s. That's why an SNP government is determined to deliver a just transition. We will work with trade unions, businesses and communities to bring forward sectoral just transition plans, charting the transition of sites, industries, regions and communities. We will develop a robust monitoring framework to sit alongside these sectoral plans, which will measure our progress towards a truly fair and just transition to net zero, based on well-being, sustainability and, crucially, fair work principles. And we'll appoint a Minister of Just Transition with responsibility for overseeing a national mission of fairness and opportunity as we move to net zero. Friends, with an SNP government, there will be no limit to our ambitions for improving our economy and creating new jobs. But of course, the quality of those jobs is every bit as important as the quantity. Although many of the key powers remain in the hands of the Tories at Westminster, I can assure you that where we can act to improve employment security and enhance the quality of work, we will. Our Fair Work First programme makes adoption of fair work practices part of the criteria for winning public contracts and receiving grants. It uses the financial power of government to make fair work the norm. Learning lessons from working practices during the pandemic, we'll now build flexible and family-friendly working into that programme and expand on our commitment to living hours as well as a living wage, with support for a specific accreditation programme for businesses delivering living hours. During the pandemic, some companies have used disgraceful fire and rehire tactics to undermine wages and conditions. The SNP will continue to push the UK government to act, but it has so far refused to take the necessary steps to ban these exploitative practices. So we will review our Fair Work First criteria to include specific reference to fire and rehire tactics. And we'll look at ways to support people achieve a healthier work-life balance. As part of this, we'll establish a £10 million fund to allow companies to pilot and explore the benefits of a 4-day working week. We will use the learning from this to consider a more general shift to a 4-day working week as and when Scotland gains full control of employment rights. More widely, we will support a review in partnership with trade unions and business of how working practices could and should be adapted to meet the needs of the future economy. Meeting the needs of our future economy also involves investing in our workforce. I'm proud that the SNP government has massively expanded free childcare provision. In the next term, we'll go even further by building a system of wraparound childcare with those on the lowest incomes paying nothing. To support families on low incomes, we will double the Scottish Child Payment, which has been described already as a game changer in the battle against child poverty, to £20 a week for every child in a low-income family. And we will begin work on delivering a minimum income guarantee. While we are limited by the lack of full powers over tax and benefits, we will go as far as we can to deliver a decent income for all. And for those young people who are trying to transition to adulthood at one of the most difficult periods in our history, our Young Persons Guarantee will offer a university, college, apprenticeship, training, place or job. And our National Transition Training Fund will help people at risk of losing their job to reskill so that they can move into growing industries of the future. Friends, our economy and our society will only be sustainable in the long term if we build them around strong public services. NHS investment is already at record levels in Scotland. We will increase the frontline NHS spending by at least 20%, meaning more than £2.5 billion of additional investment. And we're offering the hard-working staff in the NHS the biggest single pay increase in the history of devolution. But perhaps the most substantial reform we will make in the next term will be in our social care sector. One of the first acts of an SNP government will be to take the first formal steps to create a national care service. This will make a real difference not just to those who receive care, but also to those who care for them with such dedication. The National Care Service will oversee the delivery of care, improve standards, ensure enhanced pay and conditions for workers, and provide better support for unpaid carers. And for the first time, it will allow us to introduce a national wage for care staff and enter into national pay bargaining. I know that a national care service is a key ask of the STUC in this election, and if re-elected, it will be a top priority of the SNP in government. As we work together on this and on many other shared priorities, I hope we can continue to do so with an open and constructive relationship, which I believe we have maintained. We must continue standing together against Tory attacks on workers' rights and on the work of trade unions. There will be no recovery from COVID without a recovery for working people the length and breadth of Scotland. And when the immediate threat of the pandemic is over, the people of Scotland should have the right to determine their own future, to choose exactly what kind of recovery we want to see, and I welcome the STUC's support for that basic democratic principle. Scotland is an immensely wealthy country with human and natural resources that most nations can only dream of. And with these resources, I know that together we can build a fairer and more prosperous country, the country that all of us want to see. By backing the SNP in this election, people can elect a government with the experienced leadership and the policy vision to take Scotland into that brighter, more sustainable future. Thank you all very much indeed.